Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. Has big tech poisoned our politics, or has it merely revealed deep social and political divisions? With each passing day, making that determination becomes more and more difficult. Those who have the power to control our social interactions define what we understand to be reality. This is simply tyrannical. Cross-talking big tech, I'm joined by my guest, Ron Placone, in Los Angeles. He is a comedian and host of the YouTube show Get Your News On with Ron. And here in Moscow, we have Suzie Dawson. She's a journalist, activist, and co-founder of Panquake.com. All right, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Ron, I'm going to go to you first because you got up earliest for this program, and it's always much appreciated out there in Los Angeles. Ron, where do we stand right now? Because, we're watching a lot of the coverage of, who's being canceled and all of this censorship. And then that young woman, Emily Wilder from the AP, she was canceled as well by the AP, which apparently a lot of people in the AP are very upset about. I am outraged by it, and I'm even more outraged by all the conservatives that are applauding it because I thought they were against cancel culture here. So we've really gotten down to a situational morality, and you know who it works best for? For the professional managerial class in big tech. You get everybody in a circle firing squad and say fire, and it works to their advantage. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point too, Peter, where sometimes people will not only be accepting of censorship that kind of crosses a line, but they'll also kind of cheer it on when it kind of fits their political ideology, and that's really problematic. We're at a weird place in our society where technology has passed up where the law is at. And we're in this place where these social media companies, they have authority that they have no business having and that they're not equipped to have at all. How are they qualified to make free speech calls throughout the world and tell people what is and isn't news, tell people what they should and shouldn't be consuming? It's a problem, and we need to have policy that meets the moment, that really addresses this problem. And I think it's time for a digital bill of rights. I think that these social media platforms should have to follow the free speech laws of the United States, and that'll kind of get us into a better place than where we're at now. Because right now it's just Mark Zuckerberg and his friends are deciding what people can and can't see and who does and doesn't have a platform on social media, which is pretty much the modern day town square.
Absolutely. Suzie, one of the things I find really very, very disturbing here is the gatekeepers for the professional managerial class in big tech actually are journalists. They're the worst of them all. They're the ones that go on a witch hunt. They actually actively seek out people's participation in social media and try to out them. Very often it's done mistakenly or not with full context. But it's the journalists that are this is something in my lifetime that I really haven't seen to this extent here. They're the gatekeepers for this tyranny. And the more they do it, the more they excel at it, the more they're celebrated. So they're actually the most celebrated censors around, and the person that gets the least amount of credit that did journalism greatness was Julian Assange. It's really amazing over the last few years where you had this beacon of hope, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Now they're in purgatory, and the people that made a lot of money and fame off of them now pretend that they never knew either or condemn Julian Assange and WikiLeaks at the same time. What in the world has happened in a few short years? Go ahead, Suzie.
Well, you're absolutely correct. Julian Assange is the greatest journalist and publisher of our generation, and yet is in Belmarsh prison, maximum security prison in London's UK. Obviously makes a farce of any claims of interest in press freedom by Western governments. And it is Julian and his organization WikiLeaks, which was a big part of the inspiration for Panquake.com, which is the project I'm currently working on to bring us all a lifeboat away from this big tech censorship and away from their manipulation of the circulation of information by people all around the world and the negative impacts on our relationships and our ability to communicate that has arisen from their domination of the information space. WikiLeaks was all about transparency. Julian is all about transparency. And you can't have transparency when you have hidden puppet masters controlling everybody's ability to speak, their ability to spread information, their ability to read and to learn and to study and to understand the world that is around them. And Panquake.com is offering an alternative by freeing everybody from those corporate structures, by allowing the users of the network to see everything that is happening in the network, removing that hidden hand of manipulation, making every action on the network transparent to everyone, and at the same time protecting the powerless, which is very much what WikiLeaks is all about. They're about respecting the rights of the public, of the powerless, and holding the powerful to account. So Panquake does not collect any user information, any private data from users. Panquake makes public the actions of the platform so that we have transparency for those who would have some semblance of control, and we have privacy for those who do not.
Well, I suppose, Suzie, that Facebook and Twitter are really cheering for you, huh? All right, I want to talk a little bit more about Panquake in the second half of the program because you've told me about it and I'm fascinated with it. Ron, let me go back to you in Los Angeles. You know, one of the things that, I think there's some misperceptions out there. I mean, obviously, as a conservative, I hear all of the complaints about shadow banning and deplatforming and all that. And a great deal of it is true, okay? I don't deny that. But at the same time, I see you very often on the Jimmy Dore Show, and you were on a few days ago. Can you remind me what the numbers that Jimmy has had to experience? Like from 60 million unique visitors down to what, 16 million in a few months? Did I get those numbers right? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, that's in the ballpark. Yeah, and it's because of the algorithm that really does not show independent news and independent channels that aren't on the kind of favored algorithm that YouTube has. So yeah, I mean, it goes on all sides. I mean, it happens on the conservative side, but it also happens a lot on the left too. Yes. I mean, especially anti-war pages on Facebook. Pages for Palestinian rights on Facebook. I mean, these are all censored on a regular basis.
But Ron, if I can stay with you here, I'm about reaching out to people that I don't always politically agree with here. I mean, this should be the issue. This has to be the issue, that we have to reach across the aisle and not only shake hands, but grasp each other. Because I really feel this moment of free expression is evaporating before our eyes. And there's all this bickering going on in the middle of it all. And it's always the smallest minds that do it. And then it's this neoliberal project that just revels in us ravaging each other. Keep going, Ron.
Yeah, and that goes into kind of another thing on what a lot of these social media platforms do, in particular Facebook. Their algorithm is such, when you log onto Facebook, their algorithm is such that they don't want you to log off of Facebook. So they kind of just keep churning out information that they think you're going to like. So, if you're from a certain type of political ideology, they're going to keep feeding you information, granted information they decided not to censor, but information that they think you're going to like and that you're going to kind of stay on that page and you're going to kind of keep consuming that information so they can kind of get more of your data to kind of harvest, because that's really what they're in the business of. They're in the business of your data and advertising. So, they definitely do their part in keeping people in their ideological bubbles. I'm not saying that never happened, before social media. Certainly before social media, you had arguments at the holiday dinner table. But I think it's certainly not really helping, and it could be.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Facebook. Susie, let me go to you. I mean, you and I had a conversation a few days ago, and I told you how it's repulsive what they do. I mean, you know, maybe I'm a certain personality type, but their algorithm just pushes me away to the point where I hardly ever visit the page anymore because I don't like being, you know, directed, being pulled by the nose to this nook and cranny and that. I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe it's just my personality type, but I just find it to be a awful experience, okay? And that's why, you know, you and I have been talking about your new project, Panquake, because from what I understand is that, you know, it's completely devoid of all of that. It's basically what the users provide to others and nothing more. Go ahead.
Yes, it's true that on panquake.com you see only the content that you have opted into seeing. So there's nothing else that is ever inserted onto your timeline. There's no sponsored content. There's no advertising on the platform. Corporations, businesses have no way to purchase space or to boost their own content. They will be able to put content on Panquake like any user, but only the people who elect to follow those businesses or corporations will see their content. So it creates a fair level playing field for everyone. But just still thinking about Julian and his work, I mean, Julian provided some of the most critical and insightful information into the operations of spy agencies and also corporate intelligence, open source intelligence agencies that has ever come to the knowledge of humankind. And he warned time and time again of pervasive surveillance in the corporate market, even by Twitter and Facebook. And that's another thing that we are eradicating with panquake.com. We will not spy on you. We will not know what other browser tabs you have open. We will not know whether you've read an article or not. We will not capture any of your device information. We are not going to know what your operating system is, what version you are running. We are not retaining.
All righty, hold that thought there, Susie. We're going to have to go to a short break, and after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on big tech. Stay with RT. Okay, let's go back to Ron in Los Angeles. Another area that I think is very pathetic and terrifying at the same time is how many journalists now want to be the gatekeepers and the servants of the intelligence community. This is something, there was a trend, no doubt about it, but it was the advent of the Trump era where this went into super overdrive. And now, you know, instead of investigating or trying to understand what the intelligence communities are doing, they're on panel discussions on cable TV across the board, okay? And, you know, I'm highly critical of it on CNN because of the way they drove the Russiagate hoax, but they have their fair share on Fox too, okay? You know, where the China menace and all of this, okay? The threat inflation all the time. And this is what journalists do right now. They're actually the trigger for threat inflation. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's domestic politics, international politics, Russia, China. It's always, you know, they've become the trigger. They are the beautiful, pretty face that's reassuring that they're telling the truth when they're just stenographers for some of the worst people alive. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, and Peter, you mentioned Fox and you mentioned CNN, which are both very valid. You left out MSNBC, who also does that, yep. and they bring in members of the intelligence agency, and not only do they do that completely unapologetically, and don't see the problem with bringing in, quote, journalists who are actually part of the organizations you're supposed to be holding accountable, but they're proud of it. They brag about it. They boast these credentials as if that makes the person some authority, when it's like, no, these are the people you're supposed to be holding accountable. And we're supposed to take everything they say hook, line, and sinker, when basically they're just reciting CIA press releases. Right. They're reciting CIA press releases, and they're saying, look, you can trust us. We never got anything wrong before. Remember Iraq? We have a great track record. We've never screwed up in the past. Just believe us. If you don't like this press release, we got a press release from the oil and gas company coming up next. And if you don't like that, we got a press release from weapons manufacturers. Hey, there's a living wage strike going on soon. Here's a press release from McDonald's. That's the media in the United States, people. Peter, it was handed over to corporations a long time ago.
Yeah, it seems to me the purpose of journalism is to give power a tongue bath. That's the way it basically has gotten down to here. You know, Susie, not only Julian Assange, but Glenn Greenwald is one of my favorite journalists, and he's from the left part of the spectrum here, and he co-founded The Intercept primarily because of his great work with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And look where we are now. Glenn Greenwald, he's one of the most attacked people in social media. He doesn't bend, he doesn't crack. As a matter of fact, I'm so glad he left that rag, The Intercept, because now Glenn is 100% Glenn, okay? I see him on podcasts now. He is cut loose. He is a free man. He actually does make money on Substack, I'm happy to hear. But it's really amazing is that the heroes that we had just a short time ago are the greatest villains. And then social media and their servants in the quote-unquote field of journalism, they just amplify this hatred of Julian, of WikiLeaks, of Glenn Greenwald, and Jimmy Dore, one of my all-time favorites that I watch all of his stuff. That's why I'm very happy I get to see Ron a lot because he's a frequent guest on the Jimmy Dore show. I mean, but Susie, this is our reality here. I mean, this hasn't happened over the course of decades. This is over the course of a few short years. Go ahead, Susie.
I completely agree with you. The Intercept, when it was edited by Laura Poitras, Jeremy Scahill, and Glenn Greenwald, was a must-read on a daily basis. Yep. And I myself used to read every single article every single day. And unfortunately, since some esteemed ex-MSM editors have made their way into the hierarchy of The Intercept, and subsequently Glenn has departed, it has descended into the same old. I said the other day on social media, junk, and someone said it's not junk, it's propaganda. It's descended into the same old propaganda that you can find on any other similar liberal website. And that's really disappointing, but I'm really happy that we still have Glenn, that we now have Glenn free, and we still have him providing such incisive commentary. The most high quality information that you can obtain right now is from independent sources. It's from independent content creators. And people, the public, naturally are attracted to that because people understand the truth. The truth resonates with people. Yep. People can be indoctrinated into believing lies, but the truth has a ring to it. It resonates. And so that's why you see people are drawn to Jimmy Dore en masse, because he speaks the truth. He takes brave stances, and he also pushes for solutions, which is something I really respect about Jimmy. It's one thing just to tell people what the problems of the world are every day, because my God, there are so many of them and they are really serious problems. But the next level is to create opportunities to do something about them. And I know that's why Jimmy has backed Movement for a People's Party. I know that's why Jimmy did Force the Vote. And I know that's why Jimmy has relentlessly supported Panquake as well. Panquake.com is going to free all independent content creators, free them from censorship, free them from manipulation. It's going to give them confidence that every follower that follows them, that they'll be able to retain, that they won't have their audience removed from them.
Okay, Susie, I'm going to make you a promise right here and now. When you launch, I want to have you come back, have Ron come back, because he'll be on it as well. I'll probably be on it as well. And a certain friend in Honolulu will have on as well. You know who I'm talking about. So you keep me in mind when it launches here. Ron, one of the things I was thinking about, going through the pandemic and everything. And, you could look at Trump, and you could look at Russiagate, and you could look at all of the tropes that had been thrown at us by the media, okay? All of these invented, these hoaxes and all this. And Susie's right. I mean, you can be tricked into these things because we have these preconceived ideas about politics. But then the pandemic came, and then they did it to science. And that's where I hope a lot of people are suddenly waking up, because science is supposed to be some kind of objective thing. That's how we were all taught about it, and we saw how it was politicized here. And I think that it shows that their model of manipulation is deeply, deeply flawed, because as Susie said, the truth is so much more attractive. And when you see the truth, you kind of intuitively know it's that, okay? And I think that this is the situation we're in right now. If you look at all of the ratings for cable and the main broadsheets, they're all way down. I think people are taking a breath and trying to understand where we are. And we don't have a lot of good indicators out there. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I think the ratings are down because slowly and surely people are realizing that there's other choices out there. So they're kind of turning it off. And yeah, I mean, the way things have been politicized, I mean, especially in the United States, I mean, it was all around the world, but especially in the United States was just absolutely ridiculous to see. People are forgetting how the scientific method itself works. I mean, that was something we were all taught this, I want to say in the 4th grade. But, you know, you were taught that they try different things, they try to figure things out, they test hypotheses, they try to find commonalities to reach some amount of consensus. Well, that process has been going on as it should. And people are kind of too busy shouting at each other, thinking that they have everything figured out. Yeah. And it's been really sad to see. And I just hope we're, you know, I hope we're getting to the end of this thing.
Yeah, but let me stay with you on this point, Ron. Is that the same thing that happened to journalism, where they've been co-opted into this ideology by the professional managerial class. Scientists have done that as well. They have been co-opted into this agenda here, because irrespective of what either one of you think about Donald Trump, and I don't care one way or another, but it seems that for so many journalists and now scientists have to make a professional judgment on a prejudice they may have now. This is so damaging to informing society. I mean, I think just like Susie, you on me. I mean, when this thing started, you should do this, you should do that, because I thought we were dealing with good faith actors. Well, we found out they're not particularly good faith. They're ideological actors. And I think this is what's sown so much confusion with people, is what is the truth now? Journalists failed us. And now it seems like scientists have done exactly the same thing. Susie, let me go back to you, because I'm curious more about Panquake. I mean, if you could explain in a few sentences, what is the biggest difference between Panquake and, let's say, Twitter and Facebook, so people can understand? Like, give us like a whiteboard, 4 points. Go ahead.
Freedom.
Okay, that's a good one.
Integrity. Transparency. And next generation technology.
Okay, Susie, let me jump in here. Okay, people know about this. Panquake is on the radar. How is it being received? I understand there's some people that really don't like you and what you're doing. Tell us about that.
Well, it's funny that the critics only come out when I'm trying to introduce freedom to the masses. And yet when I'm between projects, they have nothing to say. But when we have a real opportunity to free content creators and the public from censorship, from surveillance, then all of a sudden they want to have a hate fest. Well, they can have their hate fest, but in the meantime, we've got 30 people who are building every day an incredible product. And it has been an amazing, amazing success to show the various independent media people who we've done presentations for, including yourself in the last week, what the front end of Panquake actually looks like, and then even give some insight into the back end build and what we've been doing there. The truth is that Panquake is ahead of schedule by about 10 days at the moment from where I thought we would be at. We are delivering every single month transparently in the public arena. We do delivery presentations and show exactly where we're up to. The application looks beautiful. It's easy to use. It's intuitive. In terms of design quality, I want to say it competes with a commercial product, but the truth is it's actually a cut above. You've seen it yourself, and I'd be interested to hear your impressions, given that you actually know what Panquake will look like. But the quality of design and development is absolutely top notch, but the ethics behind it are top notch.
Okay, Susie, I have to jump in here. We're going to go to I'm sorry, we've run out of time here. But you said one word, and that attracts me the most: freedom. Many thanks to my guests in Los Angeles and in Moscow, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, CrossTalk rules.